What was your "this person is on another level of stupid" moment? Dude burned down his convenience store for an insurance claim and stopped the milk and bread deliveries the day before. He's too caring for the criminal world, didn't wanna inconvenience the milk and bread companies. Demolished my right foot and a bunch of other crap in a motorcycle crash and had to have the top of my foot removed. Guy I worked with asked me when it would grow back. I explained that the skin and stuff was going to have to be grafted, but the tendons and bones that had been removed were gone forever. He looked me dead in the eye and asked why don't they just cut the whole freaking thing off and let it grow back. Going through security and the person says I need to show a different form of it. I ask why because I gave them my driver's license. They say I need a US document like a green card or something. I'm a US citizen. Then I realized. I explained how District of Columbia is long for DC, like Washington DC, as in the capital of our country. OMG, I can relate. I'm from New Mexico. The number of people that think we are a foreign country is astounding. I got a bad grade in geography in high school. My teacher kept trying to push me and suggested I talk to my parents about it. I told my mom I was failing geography and she said, how freaking stupid can you really be, Justin? How do you fail geography? It's just shapes. I'll never forget that one. Texagon. Co-worker bought a low-flow shower head. He filled the bathtub using the new low-flow shower head because IT would use less water. That's like cutting a pizza into 6 pieces because I couldn't eat 8. While driving from one big city to another, I stopped in a small town to eat at a fast food chain in Texas. I order my food, get my orange number tent and sit down to wait for my order. The lady who's bringing out orders has this I give up demeanor as she's calling out numbers that guests aren't claiming. Each time this happens, she speaks to a couple tables to seemingly figure out who food is for. Then I hear her call for number 55 while holding a tray of food for one person. I was number 54 and noticed I was the only single party guest there. We make eye contact and she heads towards me. She confirms my order with me and says sorry. For some reason the computer prints one number higher. I immediately ask, well then why don't you just call out one number lower than what's printed? She freezes and I can see the gears turning in her head. I tell her thank you and she goes on her way. Probably it had been hectic and she didn't actually got time to think about what she was doing. I'm an identical twin and have been asked all manner of utterly ridiculous questions about it throughout my life. But I think the stupidest was when a girl once asked me, do you ever get yourselves mixed up with each other? I responded, are you asking me if I ever sometimes think I'm my brother? She replied, yeah, number, I don't. When I was in middle school I was in art class with a boy named Devon. I told him my sister has the same name as him and he asked me what her name was. The time I watched someone who had missed their exit on the highway stop on the shoulder, back up, turn around, and go up the entrance ramp. I could not freaking believe it. I remember that my driver's ed textbook had an explicit warning against doing that. At the time I wondered why they had put something so obvious in there. Later I realized it was in there because lots of people do it. I work for Parks Canada in Yoho National Park. I have been asked the question, seriously, where do you keep the animals at night? Twice in my career. To this day I still find great joy imagining what they thought was going on each night as we collected every large animal in the parks. Hey, you. Frick you bear, get your butt over here. Come on, don't be a crap. Get in there. I was a co-hostess with a girl in a restaurant, watching ads on a hanging TV for a new movie. At the end, it said coming soon to a theater near you, to which she turned to me with wide eyes and genuinely asked, how do they know where I live? This was my first experience in retail where I learned what many customers would be like. Seasons were changing, so we put a lot of shirts we had to get rid of in the front and made them 50% off. I was working the register when a woman came up to buy her things. I rang her up and could see a look on her face like something was wrong. That's when the following happened. Lady, why is this so much? Me. Pardon me? Lady, this should only be $10 not $20. I thought that maybe her item was on sale, so I asked if she could point out the sign because I wasn't aware of it. It was a small store and we didn't have to walk anywhere. Lady, this sign here. Me. This sign says that all shirts are 50% off. Lady, yes. So why is this full price? Me, this is a hat. Back when the Fukushima nuclear power plant disaster happened, we were discussing how the reactor had failed in a science class. 5 minutes into the conversation, a girl piped up and said, "I don't see what the big deal is. Why can't we just regrow it?" She dead but thought a nuclear power plant was a plant. Frick me, that's amazing. Summer camp counselor made all the kids on a school bus keep the windows up on a hot day because they could feel the air conditioning coming from the front of the bus. It was so hot, and I, maybe 10 years old at the time, had to explain to the 40-year-old counselor that the air conditioning they were feeling was the wind coming in through the bus driver's open window. She still didn't believe me. I begged her to ask the bus driver to confirm the bus did not have air conditioning, but she didn't want to bother him while he was driving. It was like a 1-hour bus trip. She finally got hot enough and asked the bus driver if the bus had air conditioning. And he jokingly said the bus only has air conditioning when the windows are down and the wheels are turning. She then looked back at me and said, "See, I told you the bus had air conditioning," and proceeded to force us to keep the windows up. We asked our classmates to prove she knew the 7 continents. Her list went like this: North America, Europe, China, the Pacific Ocean. I crap you not. Dang. To think she missed Mount Everest, the Pacific Ocean, and the Polar Express. It's like they aren't even teaching geography in schools anymore. Sad, really. Watching a man try to open the locked front door of my shop while a bright red closed sign was literally inches from his face. He kept looking at the door like it was just stuck. There was a girl in my high school who forced the teacher to pause a documentary about people living in mud huts in Africa because she was upset that they were showing us fictional movies in a history class. It took everyone else in the room to convince her that people actually live like that in some places. Wealthy area living for ya. Funny in part because it's usually other way around. People who don't believe that there are modern cities and many countries in Africa. I was friends with a guy who believed those fake Apple adverts like Apple Wave, microwave your phone for instant battery charge. I was so dumbfounded that he actually fell for it. When I saw him the week after and he had a new phone, it all clicked for me. When I was younger, I was mad that everyone else had an accent and I didn't. 3 years later, I realized that I did in fact have an accent and that I was on another level of stupid. Knew a girl in middle school that didn't understand the concept of perspective. She also thought north was whichever direction you were facing at the time. Ah yes, true north. A friend didn't have coins for a vending machine but did have $1. She folded up the dollar and forced it into the coin slot and then did not understand why she did not get her item. For me, I had a concussion and was getting x-rays taken. They gave me a lead blanket to wrap around my twig and berries. I took it and wrapped it around me like a cape. I could not understand what they wanted me to do. In your defense, you were concussed. I was helping a colleague with his graduate thesis film. My job was to animate a solar eclipse. Since we couldn't shoot one for real, I animated it using some real-life reference footage to make it look realistic. When I showed him, he asked why the moon was black and had no detail. I asked him if he had ever seen a solar eclipse and he replied, "Yes, of course, but I want this one to look surreal since it's the moon in front of the sun. It's not like a normal solar eclipse." At this point it became clear something was amiss, and after asking a few more clarifying questions it became clear he had no idea that the large object passing in front of the sun during a solar eclipse is, in fact, the moon. I confronted him about it and he apologized for not being great with astrology. At least he tried to apologize. Not me, but a friend worked in a call center for a CC company in the disputes department. The number one item people called to say they never purchased: interest charge. To be fair, I used to work with a girl who was sweet but so dumb. We were in a meeting once and somehow someone mentioned baked ham. My manager said, "Doug, I hate ham. It looks like human flesh." The girl I mentioned was sitting next to me and looked horrified and whispered, "Does ham really come from people?" I'd be more worried about the manager that knows what cooked human flesh looks like. A group of late teens sitting outside my building assuring each other that all criminal charges would be dropped when they reached 21. DUIs, drug charges, traffic violations, everything. I walked away shaking my head because they were in for a reality check. Me, when I was a kid, I had a real old transistor radio, asked my parents for a newer radio, so I could receive and listen to newer music. I mean, that could make sense if you were the right age for the AM/FM split. At the time I was working at a grocery store that had a co-insta machine. Basically you could place all of your unwrapped change in it and it would be converted for a small fee that you could use for actual cash. I was walking past and noticed a woman struggle with the machine. I stopped to help her. Turns out she had accidentally hit Spanish as a language selection. I quickly explained what she needed to do, figuring she couldn't read Spanish. We were in the US and this is where her struggles came from. So I run through how it works and show her where the receipt will print out that she can turn in at customer service for the cash. She turns and looks at me and says, "But I don't want Spanish money." Sigh. Then I have to explain to her that she would get paid in US dollars. Dude, my mom is one of those people that would just press buttons without reading on stuff like that. Coin machines, card reader, etc, etc. Then just wait for customer service to help. Took a long time to fix that. God, it pee me off so much watching her be willfully ignorant. Rescued a co-worker on the side of the road with a flat tire, waiting for the tow truck. I pointed out the nail at the top of their tire. They scoffed and looked at me like I was the stupidest person in the world and exclaimed, "That's not true BC, it's flat at the bottom." I just walked away and never brought it up again. Gosh, what an idiot. Nails are always flat on the top. We were talking about the Irish potato famine in college, and this one girl said, "Oh wow, I thought it was the potato family," as if that wasn't enough. She later asked why were they so eager to get jobs. If I was that hungry I wouldn't even try to get a job. Man, I wish I was joking. Oddly, she's so dumb she is smart. Jobs were net calorie drains during the potato famine. Many Irish died as they worked themselves to death. Also the food they earned went to their kids, so the work did save them. Bleak times. Also, for those who don't know, the famine was an artificial economic creation of the British, and not a natural famine. I was once asked how it felt to come to the US as a refugee. I'm from Germany. She then looked rather surprised when I told her that Hitler has been dead for 75 years and that Germany is one of the more liberal countries in the world these days. She full on thought I fled Nazi Germany. Back in 2000, I was in the US with my German girlfriend at the time and we convinced my roommates that Germans live in teepees. Some wigwams already had power but not all. I had to explain to a girl why you couldn't grow your hair down in front of your face and just cut out eye holes. Even explaining it, she couldn't grasp it and brushed me off as being too smart. This is my favorite one. LOL. I got a concussion a while back. A friend of mine told me not to come close because it might be contagious. They weren't kidding. I had to explain to a woman that apples did not contain any gluten, meat, or dairy ingredients. How can one think apples contain dairy? She thought gluten was found in every major grain, and that apples were a grain because they have seeds. Ex-flatmate cancelled the gas and electricity contract because it was too expensive. Wondered why we had no more electricity nor gas. She thought we paid €90 a month to get a hotline 24/7 in case of problem. I was friends with a couple who only had enough money to pay either the cable bill or the electricity. They paid the cable. A couple days later the power was turned off. My friend is allergic to walnuts. One day, he made this sandwich in our college dorm. It had walnuts garnished on top of the bread. I then remember him telling me, "Oh look, there's walnuts on here," and proceeds to eat the entire sandwich. At the time I didn't know he was allergic. I leave to shower and when I come back there are 2 paramedics in our dorm taking him out on a stretcher. The following day I asked what happened, to which he replies something along the line, "I accidentally ate some walnut which I'm allergic to," and by the time I went to get a Benadryl, my throat had started to close and I couldn't swallow it, so I had to call 911. I was just utterly shocked how he even let this entire situation happen. I really couldn't believe it. He had known there were walnuts on the bread and still ate it. College days, am I right? In high school I met a boy who asked me for a hygienic cloth because he thought he had a period. Actually he only sat on a melted popsicle. Poor guy might not have gotten the talk by then. An old co-worker was telling me that there's people out there that think Alaska is an island. I laughed in disbelief, but another co-worker overheard and was flabbergasted. What? It's not? But it's always drawn off to the side with Hawaii point made. Another time a guy with a really thick accent walked in. Same girl was like, oh wow, I like your accent, where are you from? Said guy. Have a guess her response? Haviguous? I've never heard of that place before, and walked away. She is super sweet, just slightly oblivious. I worked at a meat desk for a summer job, and a woman came in and asked if we had any meat without spices or sauces. She then proceeded to tell us that the doctor had said that her dogs got sick because she kept feeding them pizza and they couldn't handle the spices. She then said, oh but they love pizza so much, I feel bad for them. I'm probably still gonna feed them pizza. I hate people like this who knowingly harm their children and or pets' health. At least with children you can call CPS, but pets are sadly at these dumbasses' mercy. My wife's cousin and her husband, not baby daddy of her unborn child, fell on self-induced hard times and needed a place to stay for a bit. We set up a queen-sized air mattress in the living room for them. For 3 weeks I woke up to go to work and every morning saw them sleeping on it sideways with their legs hanging off the edge. Then one day she asked me to buy her a bigger air mattress because this one was hard on their backs. I told her to turn her body, the freaking thing even has a built-in pillow on one end. Her response was that then they couldn't see the TV. Then freaking turn the air mattress to face the TV. That's the story of how I became an butthole to the trailer trash side of the family. The bad part is that it's only one of many stories. The husband was a cook at Applebee's. The baby daddy was a cook at Applebee's. And her new husband was another cook from the same freaking Applebee's. All working together. I work retail. Had a customer a few weeks back pull her mask down to cough into the open air and then pull it back up. Really makes you wonder why there are people like this in the world. I once forgot to bring my laptop to school, so my mum had to bring it in. My maths teacher was notified and she sent me a message telling me to pick up my laptop at the front office. But the only way I could see the message is if I had my laptop with me. Same thing as using the flashlight on your phone to try to find the phone. I worked at a pet store in college. This customer asked me which food would make his pit bull swole. I suggested a high protein food with a good amount of exercise, but advised that a lot of it was determined by the dog's genetics. He asked me if we sold genetics. Answer: yes, but it comes pre-packaged in dog. The time a friend told me how much he hates potatoes while eating french fries, and I literally blew his mind by telling him french fries are potatoes. Wonder how your friend would feel about onion rings after learning what's inside those things. My friend was taking a selfie. The camera was smudged, so we told him he should clean it. He then turned his phone over and began to clean the camera on the back, then turned it back over and tried to take a selfie again with the other camera. Sometimes my genius is, it's almost frightening. I once worked in a Midwestern grocery store deli, and I was trying to explain to a woman that the name brand and generic brand of the macaroni salad that we carried were in fact identical. The woman yelled at me saying she could only have the generic brand because one is made with mayo and the other is made with mayonnaise, and I don't like mayo. When I tried to explain that mayo is an abbreviation of mayonnaise, she just said, I'm from the South, I know my food, and tutted away. She is going to be in for a shock when she goes to the pharmacy. I met a guy who got hit by a train. Not that bad, but a year later he went to show his daughter where and how he got hit by the train, and he got hit again. Sounds like a sitcom. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.